our religion drives our conduct, right? So we know that there is a worldview issue, but then also a spiritual issue, most of all, right? So our founding fathers knew that. And when they established America, well, France and the other world was also going through, issues and stuff. And we know that Europe went the way of the way of enlightenment, right? Which is not a biblical concept at all. It's not. It is a pagan concept, demonic, demonic, demonic concept. So knowing that and just having that, worldview, God was working, but Satan was also working, right? Because Satan always imitate God's work. He does. And then eventually that work came into our country. And eventually it started coming in, and you guys is email 3-1, like that actually gives like an overall history of how socialism was established within our country and how they were gonna just carry it out. Okay, but even though that work have been working for years, I mean probably like 100 years, right? But back in 1919 was when they had established something, a plan of how they will infiltrate um, our country and destroy it. So I would not go too much into lecture 3-1 per se, just because of time. You guys, you guys should read it. But lecture 3 focus on a couple things. It focused on the idea of socialism infiltrating our country, but then also like the philosophies, okay? Because worldview matters. Like I said, okay, the worldview matters, and we need to definitely keep pounding that in our heads because Christians have gotten silent. They just have. And I love how you said, earlier that you guys are, you guys are involved. That, I mean, that is the only way that we will be able to stem this thing from happening. At least pushing it back, at least holding it back for now, because we know eventually, America's gonna fall, but I don't want it to fall on my watch. So if so so if godly people can stand up and godly people can continue to work, continue to persevere, continue to painstakingly do all of the hard work, our children plus our other, children, grandchildren can prosper, because I think of others before me who labor for years. I mean, I mean, hundreds of years, right? So having that, having that to be thankful over is definitely good. All right. Um, so, okay. So we talked about socialism because socialism it is part of one of the six dominant, dominant, dominant worldview. Okay. Um, socialism isn't socialism isn't really an an established worldview per se, because socialism always leads to communism. It just does. Socialism is a Trojan horse that sounds great. It, it's great, right? But then it always leads to communism and then eventually Marxism. So someone explained to me, socialism, no, communism is a socialist that is in a hurry, right? And then a Marxist is a communist with a gun. So we with a gun. GUN, yes. So we are at that phase where socialism isn't really there anymore. It's fading away, and now communism is being openly, you know, openly portrayed, talked about, encouraged by our elected officials. So next is what? Marxism. Eventually, they will start taking guns and start pointing it at us, and they already have. I mean, per se. So, did you guys read the law? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay. Oh,
another page 200 something to another 200 something. I had no clue. I just started at the beginning. And this was listed like it's a pamphlet the guy wrote. That's not a pamphlet, man. If it's like page 280 something. So
so
how
are you
long is
talking
it?
about?
The
Oh, okay.
law.
So the book, the book that I have, have it in there. So that's why it is saying page 200 and something, you know. But some people have just that pamphlet. So it's different. So that's why my email doesn't say pages on there. It just doesn't say pages. It says the heading to heading. So that way you guys can not be confused by the pages. I guess I probably should have next time I will fix that and just yeah. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. So I would just hit something Frederick said. Okay. He said, uh, it is impossible to introduce into society a greater change and greater evil than this: the conversion of the law into an instrument of plunder. All right. So welcome to socialism, right? Which is the start of moving us away from our judicial Christian heritage into communism, Marxism, and eventually. But our founding fathers knew this, and they were wise men who established us a system of government where it it should be airtight proof if we apply it correctly, right? If we apply it correctly. The issue is we are not applying it correctly. And it's not that hard. It's not hard. It is not a difficult thing to do. But the issue is the heart of man, right? So let's just go back to into the basic, all right? So we learned that human law must conform into what law? Into whose law? The written laws, the law of nature, and nature's God. That is the biggest and most important phrase you guys will ever hear. From a government standpoint, that should be the greatest and most important phrase outside of under God, you know, that you and I need to emphasize and teach other people. The law of nature and nature's God. We just breeze through it. Nobody talks about it, and we wonder why we are here. So, what is the law of nature and nature's God? I'm just going back to the basics, just hoping you guys can take anything out of this class. Is that there is a God, right? Okay. So, we need to understand that. All right. So, the law of nature and nature's God. What what is it? Does anybody know? Just shout it out. We've gone through this. The mic. Oh, not you. Okay. The law of nature and nature's God. It's two things. All right. So we need to filter our laws through two things, which is the law of nature and nature's God. Context now, does it make sense to you guys? It is the Bible and our conscience. All right? We filter laws through one, the Bible, and two, our conscience, because God has put his word on every man's heart, right? So our founding fathers understood that. It's right in the Declaration of Independence. We need to get a grasp on that phrase. All right? Any other law that doesn't fit that mold is what? They called it what? Grievance 17 and 19 in the Declaration of Independence. Say it. Pretended legislation. The very same thing that led to the War of Independence after 30 years of usurpation, abuse, it is the same thing happening now. All right. It's just that simple. Our government is abusing power, using tactics that are not constitutional. They may try to make it legal because something is legal doesn't mean that it's right. That just means that someone's in power is allowing it to happen. Someone who has a worldview that is contrary or, you know, that is contrary to yours, right? So they knew that. So the law should reflect or should pass that test. It's really that simple. Laws like this bill that is passing or that is even discussed, it is what? Pretended legislation for a couple reasons. One, education isn't the government's job. It's not. Education isn't even supposed to be our legislation job at all. Those are all local issues. All right? So next week we should be getting into more of the jurisdictions, okay? But this week for now, education isn't. Medicare, healthcare isn't a legitimate law. It is pretended legislation. Because Article 1, right, Section 8, those 17 clause is clear. The federal government has those 18 clause. That's it. Anything outside of that is pretended legislation. That's why they have it the way that they do. It's very clear. It's very simple. Anything else outside of that is a lie. Everything outside of that is a facade. So, are you okay? You look like you're like, what, really? You know, yes, yes, sir.
Constitution is dependent on two things: the laws of nature and nature's God.
Yep.
What do you mean by the laws of nature?
So the law of nature is the things that we see within, nature, right? Like, I mean, certain things we see that the effect that there is a creation, there has to be a creator. I mean, that is just the law of, nature. Something had to have created this, the flowers, the trees. I mean,
Natural
That is a
phenomena.
common sense, thing.
Yeah, natural phenomena, rainbows, earthquakes, rain. Rain makes flowers and things grow. That's part of God's nature.
Yeah. Yep. And then nature's God is that some things that nature, like nature cannot explain. So it had to be written down. So God's word explains to us that, I mean, clearly we see that a man and a woman can come together and create another life, right? There are some people who don't accept that, because yeah. And what is something else and that actually proves the other point. But um, like, I mean, you shouldn't murder. We have that. We have that upon our heart. I mean, we knew. I mean, we know that murdering is wrong. I mean, Cain and Abel. I mean, Cain knew that murdering his brother was wrong, but it wasn't in nature, per se. So that's why it had to be written down by God, right? So that's what I mean about the laws of nature and nature's God. Okay? So, yep. Okay, so it is pretended legislation. And all of those things should not even exist, right? But now we are fighting this war within our, society, within our culture, within our schools. And education was this driving force because they knew that. And that's why they were so adamant about taking control of it. All right, and now we have, public schools. People just send their children there. I mean, even Christian colleges and schools are all been infiltrated. So we need to go back to that. We need to be aware of that. That that this is just bigger than just our little society, But this is a big issue. This was a very thought out plan that was created a long time ago by some real smart people, real smart and evil people. But you know, it is a plan. All right. So that's what. So that. So that's what Frederick. So that's what Frederick said over probably about 200 years ago, but it rings true today, right? Is that our government is using this pretended legislation for plunder. They are destroying our system with what healthcare, with public housing. All of those things are all plunder. Those things are not what should be happening. Those things are not what our founding fathers would even be like, what? You guys are doing what? Like, it's clearly there, right? It's clearly here still. And they are wise enough and bold enough to not even amend it. It's not even amended in our Constitution. Can you tell me where healthcare is in our Constitution? It's not. EPA, DOJ, where is it? They are not even that. I mean, they're just banking on us not even knowing, but most of all, not even caring. And that's where I see it as like, I mean, these people are bold. Okay. So yeah. So it is pretended legislation. And socialism is just one of those that infiltrated within our society. But then also we have our government working with outside groups, outside entities like the UN, you know, and they are literally legislating our country for us. They are, and with the comprehensive sex education, those are not American values. Those are not. So let's go to email email 32 for a second, and let us just see that. Okay. So, um, so let's see. America pays over. America is probably like one tenth of the world's population, but yet we pay over 80% of the UN bill. But yet, our views and theirs are, yeah. So, individual rights. The UN Charter states that the need to control the individual for the greater good of a global community. Rights and freedom may in no case be exercised contrary to the purpose and principles of the UN. So America's funding this, by the way. We are funding this. The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, Article 29, paragraph 319, 48, says that. The Declaration of Independence states that we are created equal and endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights. Government is established to protect those rights. Which one of those are being played out right now? Which one do you think is being pushed on us right now? The United States, U.S. Declaration, or the United Nations Declaration? There you go. The right to life. Does somebody want to read that? Ava, you want to read it? Just grab the mic. I kind of prepped them today to get to read. Life.
The UN is pro-abortion, having authored numerous policies in their treaties for population control, including mandatory sterilizations and forced abortions up to and through the 9th month of pregnancy.
Okay. And now read the United States.
The United States was funded with the basic God-given right to life, pro-life, listed in our Declaration of Independence.
So which one is being pushed on us right now? And how does abortion filter through the law of nature, nature's God? Our conscience plus the Bible. Can someone explain to me how? So it's what? Pretended legislation. This is the same thing over 400 years ago. Our founding fathers fought for. We are on a verge of going back and doing that again. Let it be known, people. All right? Education, right? Education. Someone want to read that? Go ahead.
The UN principles can be found throughout our school textbooks. They desire worldwide curriculum and control, and have indeed already formed an international school board called UNESCO. They vehemently oppose homeschools and Christian education, creating policy to eradicate them. The United States was founded upon the principle that government was not to be involved in the private education decisions of families. If the family functions properly, the state has no authority or jurisdiction to intervene.
think that's clear, and that's being pushed on us right now. But yet we are funding this. And President Trump was wise enough to stop it, and, but here we go again, right? We are back with no amendment to our Constitution. It's not there. They don't care, you know, and they're bold enough because they are banking on us not doing anything. So the worldview of socialism, which is the Trojan horse to death, per se, is upon us. Environment. The UN declares land use decision must be for the good of Mother Earth with animal and bugs rights often overriding people's rights. Our founder believed in the biblical mandate to take dominion over the earth and subdue it, meaning responsible caretaking and replenishing of the environment and natural resources as directed by our sovereign God, not Mother Earth. Property ownership. The UN Agenda Sustainable Development Treaty calls for elimination of private vehicles, land, and home ownership. The primary purpose of the government of the United States is to protect the private property rights of individuals, especially property, land, and homes. Currently, right now, the U.S. government owns about almost 700 million acres of land. 700 million acres of land that does not belong to them, that does not constitutionally belong to them. It doesn't fit. Legally, they have created something that, that says that it's theirs, but constitutionally, it doesn't fit. And it's just growing. EPA is continuing to wreak havoc on people's homes, businesses, land, especially. The right to bear arms. You want to read it? Give her a book. Just have her read. There you go. Sit down.
No firearms are allowed or guns to make must be registered so as to be easily confiscated from the government. First desire groups like the National Rifle Association, NRA, the Gun Owners of America, GOA, are demonized. The United States Constitution guarantees the rights to bear arms for the precise purpose of protection against a government that has overstepped its boundaries and will seek to confiscate privately owned property and goods from the general population.
Right. So you guys remember the Second Amendment, right? So what was at the end? The right of the people to bear arms. And then they finished that with what? A period. There was nothing else behind it, right? There were no registration. There were no, except for if they're crazy or mentally ill, then we have to take it away. Then we have to do this and we have to do that because all of those things were meant for the local community to take care of. The family, the local communities. See, they understood jurisdiction. And the philosophy of freedom really is only found in Christianity. It really is. But then also freedom isn't the freedom to do anything you want. That is not true freedom. The world says that's freedom, right? Our founding fathers and Webster dictionary, when you look up the word freedom is having the choice to do what is right according to God. That is true freedom right there. The freedom for us to just do whatever we want isn't freedom because we don't know. We are finite beings, people who are in our sinful state, right? We don't know. So choosing to do whatever we want it is dangerous. That is from Satan. Really, it is. So I just thought that I would just add that to the end. And then the UN, the UN uses our military to establish a new world order, getting us involved in a global peace force wherever they perceive a vital interest. The purpose of the United States military is to protect the lives and the property of American citizens, not not those of the world. And this is where I think um, a lot of people probably divide on is that they think that we should be involved in certain wars and this and that. And for me personally, I believe that America should not be involved in a lot of these wars because because of the sinful nature of man. The ability because there is always an opportunity for someone to exploit the war, right? There always an opportunity, and a part of me, just like just watching everything happen now with Brazil and Canada, and just how communism is pretty much surrounding us, right? I mean, Brazil is a prime example of what's happening right now. Is that communism is infiltrating all of those other countries, and now it's within our region now. And with the induction of the new Brazilian president, who is an open communist, and he actually got thrown into prison, but then got freed, and then ran for office, and then just happened to win, and basically watching that happen, we see how for us, I mean, America was meant to be a light throughout the war, and America should have relationship with other countries that are based on charity, but then also based on mutual friendship, but also sharing the same values. That is important. You cannot tell me America and China share the same values. You know, so these are the things that, to me, just looking at it, watching it, I'm like, "Ugh, all right, Lord, you know, it's time for us to work. For us to educate people, and I mean, tell people about China and how inhumane they are. You know, and tell our businessmen about how inhumane China are. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can get cheaper products, from them, but look at how they treat their people. How come we are dependent on them so far? Now we're dependent on them. Now we have to be quiet and just kind of pretend that we don't see whatever things that they are doing. Whose worldview is actually working right now? Theirs, because they are silencing us because of the fear of losing our business, the fear of losing parts for our business. We must not say something or speak out, or you know. So this is a worldview war. It is a spiritual war that we're in. So that's the worldview, part of it. So and like I said, and we are funding it. We need to get out of that. So it starts here. It starts here, and then hopefully it can get bigger. educate our family and friends. This is how to do it because I think a lot of people are afraid of this massive change. We don't like, okay, so the EPA doesn't exist. What do we do now? Like, or just name it. Like, what do we do? People up in here have some great ideas that we can say, hey, well, it starts at home. It starts with the family. It starts with just starts at home. Education is very simple. Department of Education just goes away. What are we going to do? Well, one, we will have tax money, that we can put somewhere else, right? It starts at home. What do? Teach your kid. Or you find someone that has the love to do it, the passion, someone that you can trust, someone that you can support financially by allowing them, but then also giving the power back to where it really belongs. These are the simple answers that you can give people because they don't know. Believe it or not a lot of people know this or can think that way. But we can because we're believers, and we are filled with the Holy Spirit and we are able to carry this burden. Others are not able to. So these are the very simple practical applications that we can bring to our government officials in case this thing ever happens like that, right? So it's not hard, for us to be able to do. So, all right, all right, all right, all right. So we are going to do something today. We will read some of these test questions and answer them. So let us go to lecture 3 test questions. And I will read it and you guys can answer it for me and then we can just expound on them if we have to. Number 1, list the major influences of the framers in order of importance. A, B, or C?
A.
A. All right. Number 2, Montesquieu maintained that blank is the author of law and that blank is necessary to keep men within the confines of God's law.
Who's got that?
A, B, or C? What is B. Oh, you guys don't have a book. Okay. B says God and civil government. So God is the author of law, and that civil government is necessary to keep men within the confines of God's law. The key is right there.
Yeah.
God's law. All right? That is the key.
Confines.
Right. And I will ask a question later about that. Number 3, Montesquieu maintained Montesquieu's main contribution was the concept of separating government into 3 branches, A, B, or C. B, legislative, judicial, and executive. And last week you guys got that email where it tells you like where they got the idea of executive, legislative from the Bible, mind you, and the concept from the Bible. All right. Number 4, comparing Christianity to Islam, Baron Charles Montesquieu claimed that Christianity makes government more A, B, C, or D. B, humane. And this is where people, we talk about the separation of church and state, which is nowhere in our documents at all, but yet people want to label that as it is a documented truth that we need to abide by it, that we, the separation of church and state whenever that comes to Christianity. But then whenever it's anything else, the rules doesn't apply to them, right? So let us examine that, right? So yes, there are separation, all right? But people do not understand how that works. Okay? So when we think about that separation of church and state or separating, religion from government, which you really can't really do, by the way. Okay, so the Mayflower Compact said that um, for the advancement of the Christian faith, right? So them and others can live, right? So now, so let's think of how government and church are clearly separated, right? They clearly are, meaning that the government cannot come and infiltrate the church and tell us what to do. But then also we cannot do what? Well, here it is. Is that so? When you, I I think people need to understand that the church can help government. The church can come alongside government and help government. All right. So as far as what the church can do is come alongside of them, but then also the church cannot enforce doctrine upon upon the government. Telling enforcing. You just can't. But the church can influence government by encouraging principles, charity, principles such as do not lie, you know, tell the truth, honesty, right? So these are the ways that the church can influence government. We cannot force people to believe in the Trinity or the gospel, but we can tell government, look, you need to be honest. You need to be all of these things because that fits the confine of the laws of nature, nature's God, which is the Bible and our conscience, right? But every single law is subjected to someone's morality. It just is. The issue is, or the question is, whose morality? Is it God or is it Satan? Or is it man? So whenever you hear people say that you cannot legislate morality, well, you're like, well, that's partially true. But every single law is a reflection of someone's morality. It just is. So those are some shallow deflects that people throw at us, and we must be ready to just say, no, you're lying, or you are ignorant and you do not understand. Let me explain to you what that means. I had a buddy where we went through all of this stuff, like just all this stuff, and he's a journalist. I love this guy to death. I have known him longer than I have known anyone else, and we grew up together. And he was probably more of a upright guy than I was growing up. Like he was always the more conscious, like do the right thing. I mean, throughout his whole life, like he's been a straight arrow, but he's not a believer. So now it's strange for us to talk to each other now and just talk because he's like, man, you're weird. Like you just change and this and that. I'm like, yeah, it's Jesus, right? But we talked about history and we talked about racism. We talked about just all of these things and was able to literally, and he threw all of these questions at me. The, separation of church and state and just all of this stuff. So just, it was, so now his tone is a lot different. And he actually, like, he actually wants to listen now. After 20 years, 25 years of friendship, and after years and years of laboring with him, now he's actually listening. He's still liberal, but it's like he doesn't have an excuse per se because he knows that, like he knows the other option. So, all right, number 5, Sir William Blackstone work commentary on the law of England provided for a better understanding of A, B, or C. B, the English common law. Number 6, Sir William Blackstone, 3 categories of laws are A, B, or C. B. Well, someone said B, so. Yes, B, reveal law, which is, right? The reveal law is actually the Bible. God wrote it. The law of nature, which is what we see in nature, and then municipal law. It goes in that order. Municipal law shouldn't be higher than reveal law. It's just that simple. That is the order. So any law that a civil government makes that defies God's law is pretended legislation. Just this. And these were the people that influenced our founding fathers. And these were the people who our founding fathers studied for years and said, this is how we will operate and function as a government. Right? Sir William Blackstone maintained that judges do not blank laws, rather they blank and blank laws. Furthermore, precedent the only legitimate if it is not contrary to blank laws. A, B, or C. I know that was a lot of blanks. All right, B, he said that judges do not make laws, rather they discover laws and apply law. Furthermore, precedence is only legitimate if it is not contrary to divine laws. So even judges, those very powerful people who can make the law of the land, even their laws are subject to God's law. And that precedence, which has been used, which is what I would say 90% of our judicial system do, is just use, case laws and precedents, and they don't even take the time to go into it, and like they just read what someone else says about this, and then they choose to go on it. Boom, it's done. So, but the judges. So let's go to our Constitution. Okay. So let's go to our Constitution. Well, not our Constitution, but so we know. So let's go to Article 2, Section 3. I guess we should probably, I think it's, what is this, Article 4 for judges? Okay. So Article 1 is legislature, and then Article 2 is for the executive, and then judges. If you guys can find the judges, What is that? Article 3? Okay. Okay. So, oh, I'm sorry. So judges, so just squash that. Sorry. Just squash that. So, so, so judges apply the law, right? Do they make the law? They don't, so they don't make the law. So who is supposed to make the law? Who is supposed to carry out the law? Who is supposed to carry out the law? The who? Executive. And who is that? The president. Isn't he supposed to be the pretty much the greatest servant in our country? He's not supposed to be the most powerful man. But yet we hear that all the time, right? The most powerful man in the world. Even he is supposed to be subject to the legislature. He doesn't act apart from them. But with the lie of executive order, that which is also isn't even amended in our Constitution, he can do whatever he wants, apparently. That's what it seems, right? But let's go to Article 2, Section 3. Let's read what the Constitution says about the executor in our country, right? It says, and he, the president, shall take care of the law to be faithfully executed. The law written by the legislature to be carried out. That is his job. And executive orders should not even be written by the stroke of a pen. It's not. It needs to have the Senate approval. Do you guys ever hear about that? Do we ever hear about that? So what is that? What are his laws then? Because everyone does it. Republican, Democrat, name them. They all do it. So I cannot just blame liberals on, this one. I just can't. Republicans do it. President Trump, he did a lot of great things, right? It's not constitutional. I like them, but it wasn't right. That is part of the problem. So that's how far we are. All right. Okay, number 8. John Locke writing led the framers to the understanding that government is established by blank and that God has ordained the A, B, C, or D. B, that God has established, you understand that government is established by the covenant or contract and that God has ordained the law of nature. Number 9, Locke claimed that the law of nature includes God's given rights, which are B, life, liberty, and property. No. Nope, that comes later. Life, liberty, and property. Because if you look at that even preceded even before the law. If you think of Adam, Number 10, in addition to the Bible, there are other general sources of the concept of the law of nature and nature's God. These include classical thinkers such as blank, international thinkers such as these guys, and contemporary thinkers such as these guys? A or B? B. Yep. If you look at the two guys, or the two group of guys were philosophers, and some of them were the first ones were a bunch of pagan, philosophers. The other ones were guys who honor God, and our founding father chose to follow those guys. So overall, I am I am grateful that we chose, or that they chose, to establish a nation created by God that for years have created stability, have created some of the best and most prosperous and most fruitful things the world has ever seen, ever participated in. And you and I get to benefit from that. And you and I get to participate in that. But with that comes us taking up the mantle of what they have labored over, and what they have established and left us. And Benjamin Franklin says, they have given us a republic if we can keep it, right? So it's up to us to do that, for us to establish this and to be able to encourage others and to fight for our country. So, is there any question? I don't think we will have time today to watch the video. I would like to play it, and if you guys want to stay and watch it, you can. Or those of you who have the book, you can just follow that book. That's basically what that video is. So you don't have to stay, but some people want to watch the video, and I would like to just do that if it's okay with you. So, but I will also like to respect others who have to go. So if you have to go, you are free to go, and if you want to stay. Chapter 4. We're watching chapter 4. All right? Lecture 4 or chapter 4. I get so confused whenever. For me, it's chapter 4, but it's lecture 4. So, do you guys have any question? Any constitutional question? Anything that we can bounce off of each other? Yes. You want to grab the mic? These are my favorite times. Go ahead.
So why does the government, like, I know it's not like what we talked about, but like, why does the government have a say in a lot of things that they can't really control?
Can you please say that again?
Like, why does the government like say things that they really can't have a say in or have like control over?
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well then I'm gonna let the source say it. I'm gonna let the source say it. No, I'm serious. Hey, this is why we get.
Oh, well, I go a little farther. I think we're big baby breaths and we don't know how to stand.
Period.
Period. Right. Love it. No, serious. I mean, if anything, COVID showed me a lot about the state of the church, about the state of people that even I held in high regards, people that I looked up to. I was like, wow, I didn't expect that, or wow, I really didn't expect that. So that's where we're at, and sadly, the enemy knows that, and unless we can repent and change, we will just keep going, so, yeah. Is there another question? Someone? Just make a comment.
We got an illegitimate president doing unconstitutional things, and I don't know what we're going to do about it. We can sit and hope and pray all we want, but we're losing it when it comes to our judges aren't standing by us, and our lawyers are fighting against us, and we're really in bad shape when it comes to this. So what's the answer to an illegitimate system that we have?
Well, well, the first thing that I would say is that for me, violence is never the answer. I mean, granted, our founding fathers took 30 years before they were like, okay, that's it. You know, we're done. They painstakingly labored for 30 years to make sure that violence was not the answer. So that is always the route that I would like to go, that I want to go. Right now, we still have a voice, regardless to how minimal it is. So the first thing that I would say that I am really nervous about is the voting machines. That's it. Like if we can get rid of that, we have a chance. But the more we allow the voting machines to stay, we will have problems. We will be done. So if we can establish that these counties are not going to use the voting machines, that we will use the hand ballot or some kind of a system that does not include the voting machines, I think we have a chance. And that's where we need to drive our effort to the next couple years, is until we can reverse that and we can establish some sort of truthful voting system, because that is our voice. If we do not have that secure, we don't have a voice. So that's where my main focus is at right now, and praying and asking the Lord, like, okay, how do I get this across to others? Go ahead.
Here in Isani County, they did 3 recounts, and they were pretty accurate on all 3 of those recounts. So it probably depends on which county is using those voting machines. But also, I think I lost my thought. Oh, you talked about we definitely need to use our voice, because we were able to hopefully remove something out of one of those bills by showing up and using our voice. So, yeah, we definitely still have a voice. Most people are just too quiet. So we have to get involved, use our voice, and be persistent.
So the other question that I would ask is why is Isani County voting system is so much better than, or so much more accurate, or with less discrepancy than others? You know?
They don't want hand counting, I'll tell you that.
Yep.
They voice that over and over.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, hand counting takes time. It takes money. You know, but we cannot fall into the god of convenience, because I think even Republicans want to fall into, let's just do it because it is a lot more like it's a lot faster, right? It's going to cost us less money, but we know the potential of harm that it can do. So for me personally, avoid all appearance of evil. And for me, that's that. So that's how I.
That might be in a nutshell what Isani County. That might be in a nutshell what Isani County is doing, is trying to avoid at all costs the appearance of evil. Because this year, since I retired, I did get involved and was involved with the recounts, and really learned a ton of the checks and balances. And Isani County does those checks and balances, and I think they're probably just operate more above board than other places. You know, and that's the people in there now coming up, and where our country's going with people that come in down the road. Would that stay the same? I do not know. But right now, I was impressed because they are actually doing the checks and balances and seem generally concerned to do it right, according to the book.
Go ahead. No.